How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Today's topic is on alcohol triggers, 9 specific ways that you can understand your alcohol drinking triggers, and then we'll do a little bit on how to disrupt them, deconstruct them a little bit, and how to overcome them, right? So first of all, we'll talk about what are your triggers. So a trigger is anything that precedes the actual behavior. So there's 3 steps to the alcohol drinking behavior, right? There's your trigger, there's the thing that sparks it off, right? Then there's the actual drinking behavior, and then finally you get to the reward, right? Why you're doing this in the first place, right? And they can be anything, right? They can be something that you've seen, something that somebody has said to you. It can be a thought. It can be something that has just happened in your environment. So the first trigger might be what you're doing right in this moment. So what is it you're doing right now that is making you think about having a drink, right? The second trigger is something that you might have done just before, right? So you might have just walked by a pub, or you might have had a bad experience, or you might have done something that has just made you think about taking an alcohol drink. Third one is, when do they fire off? Now, time is a great trigger. For me, a lot of my triggers used to fire off right at the end of the day, sort of once I'd finished work and I'd come home and I was relaxing, or just as I'd finished work and I had it in my head that I wanted to go down to the pub. So, time is a big trigger. So another trigger is the people that are around you. So these could be your family or your friends, and it can be direct or indirect. So it could be something that somebody has said to you, which makes you think that you want to have a drink, or it could be somebody actually offering you a drink, right, saying, here, have a drink. Another one is your environment, right? So obviously if you're in the pub, you're more likely to want to have a drink than if you're sort of out walking on the beach or something like that. Maybe the walking on the beach actually triggers you indirectly to think about taking a drink, but when you're in a pub, you've got the alcohol around you, the smell of alcohol, just that whole cultural involvement in the pub atmosphere that's going to start firing off all these triggers all over you. As I said, like a lot of this is to do with thinking, and most of your triggers are going to be started in your head. So you have to think about, what are you thinking in this exact moment that is making you think about alcohol. A lot of these thinking triggers are unconscious, so you don't even realize that they're happening. Like you'll get triggers which are firing off other triggers in your brain, right, which you don't think about until you actually get the thirst, or your mouth starts watering, or you really start thinking about the particular drink that you're used to drinking. Another way alcohol can affect you, as I say, is indirectly. So what were you thinking about an hour ago? What happened an hour ago that made you start thinking about you want to take a drink? So that's another area that you've got to look at when you're trying to decipher each one of your triggers, is your thinking both now and before. The next one is expectations. Now, expectations can trigger alcohol behavior, right? You expect to take a drink at a certain time, right? You expect to have a drink with a certain person. You expect to have a drink, in a certain environment. You expect to have a drink when you're feeling shit, right? And the next one is emotions, and emotions are a big, powerful stimulant for drinking behavior, right? Think about it. Your emotions can come from many different areas of your life. From bad emotions that make you want to drink because you want to get rid of the sadness or the negative emotions, or you want to try and enhance positive emotions, right? That's why we use alcohol for celebrations and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, these early triggers, the early triggers that you get, and the early behavior and the rewards that you get from drinking alcohol, these might be much more elevated when you're younger, when you actually get a buzz out of drinking alcohol. But once you get older, and I'm not talking about, like once you've been drinking for 20 years, once you've been doing this for a few months, the effect of alcohol start to wear off. The buzz that you get from alcohol starts to wear off. And you still get the buzz from the situations that you're in, from the people that you're with, and so on and so forth. But the actual high that bringing yourself up, even when you're first starting drinking it, it takes a long while before you get to that stage, because you can't drink much before the world starts spinning and you start puking and all that kind of stuff. But when you do eventually get to that narrow window of an actual high, it's short-lived. You get a peak and then it goes back down into your brain starts depressing all your functions, motor functions, and your organ function. Then it starts at, as I say, 6 minutes before alcohol starts affecting your brain. So it's a short-lived high anyway, but it doesn't last long. I mean, what we think of as the high is the high that's associated with the things that we're doing, relaxation, and we associate alcohol with the relaxation. So we tend to think that it's the alcohol that's doing it instead of the actual relaxation. So there's 9 different ways that alcohol triggers are going to happen in your life, and it's important to understand what these triggers are. Knowledge is power. If you don't understand what is triggering your drinking behavior, then it's very difficult to sort of put a disruption in between the trigger and the behavior. One of the things that you can do to disrupt the behavior is either to avoid the triggers altogether. So you can definitely avoid a lot of your environmental triggers. You can definitely avoid a lot of your people triggers. You can avoid a lot of your time triggers by just changing your time around a little bit. You can avoid some of the emotional triggers and the thinking triggers just by sort of rethinking the way that you're thinking, by changing the way that you're thinking and thinking through the thoughts. So as soon as you get a trigger, then you disrupt it by thinking something, why am I thinking this? Or, right, I'm going to go off and do this now instead of doing that. And once you're not reinforcing the trigger becomes less and less powerful, it starts to lose power over time. Another way of doing this is to follow through the sequence. So you go from the trigger, you allow the trigger to go off, but instead of going with the alcohol drinking behavior, you change the behavior, but you still try and get the same end reward. Now, as I've said, a lot of the triggers, a lot of the behavior of alcohol, we associate with relaxation or sleeping or having fun and stuff like this. And we can find all this kind of stuff in our lives as it stands. You don't need the alcohol. Alcohol doesn't catalyze fun. It doesn't catalyze your sleep. It doesn't do any of these things, right? It's your association that does it, and we get so used to doing this. I mean, it took me a month to get away from my pattern where I was needing to have a drink before I went to sleep. A whole month, and it was like diminishing every day, but it took me a month before I was able to get a good night's sleep without alcohol. So basically you're slowly eroding the power of the trigger. So, the first thing when I'm thinking about going to bed is I'm wide awake and stuff like that. And that's on day 1 and I can't go to sleep, and you're thinking about this. And then by day 30, you're so used to going to bed without an alcohol drink that, it's easy once you've established other routines and other behaviors in between. Like I just started reading books and that kind of stuff and trying to be a little bit more relaxed and tranquil before I got into bed for an hour at least. I didn't watch any mad fucking brain churning TV shows or anything like that, and I didn't read any complicated books when I'm going to bed, and I still don't do that now, and that's my routine. And it's easy to establish that. So that's it for today. Come on over to the website and sign up for our newsletter, so alcoholmastery.com. Give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. If you've got any suggestions for videos, then leave a comment down below. Until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Take care of yourself, keep the alcohol out of your mouth, onwards and upwards. Take care, bye.